start off by saying it's different for every runner. For me, I typically will hit about 60 to 70 miles per week when I'm in a full swing of marathon training, and that's a 6-day running week, so I always take 1 day off a week. So 60, 70 miles over 6 days. That's a good question. I would say both, because I think, honestly, I'm probably an introvert when you actually look at what the definition of an introvert is, and I like being alone. That's how I kind of re-energize and recharge, and I like to kind of be alone with my thoughts. But at the same time, I love being around people too. I'm a social person. I love talking with people and getting to know people, and you really get to know people when you're training for a marathon with them because you're running countless miles with them. And so I love it. I love both. And the longer days, the long run days are definitely more enjoyable with a group, with friends. The conversation just makes the miles just melt away. But some of the shorter recovery days, I certainly do not mind running those on my own. So great question. Another great question. So if you take, let's look at, if I look at 2 weeks of a marathon training program. Within a 2-week period, I'll do the 2 hard days every week will be a Wednesday, Saturday. The Wednesday is going to be shorter intervals, speed workouts where you're hitting tempo type paces, and I'm running. I could run intervals of like mile repeats all the way down to 400s, sometimes even 200s and 100s. But rarely on the faster end. Rarely am I going much faster than 5K race pace, because in a marathon you're not really touching that fast of a pace. I mean, a marathon is hard and you can run it fast, but you're not running at 5K race pace. So I do hit that in training a little bit, but not often, I guess. And then your Saturday is going to be your another hard day, second hard day of the week. But Saturday, it's either going to be a long run of anywhere from like 18 to 22 miles. Then the following week, it might be anywhere from like 15 to 18 miles for your long run on a Saturday, but it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be tempo. It's going to be faster. It's going to be at marathon race pace. So it's kind of like every other week where you're just going easy pace, like 18 to 22, and then the other Saturdays are long, faster. You think you would, because when you're training for a 5K or 10K, you run much further than the race distance. Mm-hmm. You run much further than 3 miles or 3.1 miles or 6.2 miles. In a marathon, typically they say, whoever they are, the wise individuals out there, they say that really, if you're running your long runs at 20 to 22 miles, if you're hitting that a couple times in your training period, you're going to be fine, because they figured that, well, one, if you're running more than 26 miles in your training, it's just it just has a lot of wear and tear on your body. So the idea is you want to get your long runs up there, so you're teaching you're teaching your body to tolerate hours and hours of running, and you're also actually, beyond 2 hours, you're actually kind of teaching your body to burn stored fat as fuel. So you need those long runs that exceed 2 hours, because you're going to be racing longer than that. But they say anymore, if you're running over 26 miles, you're just doing so much damage to your legs, where it requires a lot more time for your muscles to repair. And so you don't quite have to hit that in training. And also they figure on race day, with all the adrenaline flowing with the crowd out there, you're going to be able to get through the last 4 miles. So I was lifting a few years ago. I don't know, it's hard to say how much it helped my running. I didn't necessarily see a direct correlation. It didn't hurt it either, certainly, but I enjoyed it for the year or so that I did it, year or two, but I've kind of gotten out of the habit. But I think what's most important is just making sure that you're staying flexible and you have full range of motion, especially in like your hips. They always say like a runner's core is the most important. So for a runner, and I had this for a couple years, but I was so tight through my hips that it would lead to back pain, which led to pain in the glute muscle, which led to groin pain, which led to quad pain, which led to almost shin splint type pain. Yeah. And it all stems back to the hips. So I think doing drills and exercises that's going to work on hip range and hip mobility, because running is all forward motion. Mm-hmm. You're just going in one direction. There's not much side to side. And so I think for a runner, it's important to work on the side to side movements, I guess, and mobility as well, and keeping all of this loose and strong. Yeah. And I picked up hockey again. I used to play hockey 20 years ago, and I picked it up a year ago, and I play every Wednesday night. And honestly, I think that's helped my running a great deal because in addition to the drills I've been shown by various doctors to improve my running, hockey is a lot of side-to-side movement, and I've noticed more range of motion and mobility through the hips, and that's in turn helped me in running too. So I'm probably not the best person to answer this question because yes, I do change my diet, but I change it for what most people would consider to be the worst. I, quite honestly, when you're training, when you're running 60, 70 miles a week, you're just hungry all the time, and it's important that you're getting in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a runner's best friend. Carbs, protein, fat, salt. I'm a heavy sweater, so in the summer I am just constantly sweating out, all the electrolytes and whatnot, and I lose a lot of salt, so I always crave salty food. So what I always tell people is eat what you crave, especially when you're running 60, 70 miles. It sort of doesn't matter what you're eating. Like, I honestly don't care about the quality of the calories. I just want calories, and when the hunger hits, it hits hard. I'll be honest, the first marathon I ran, it's been my best so far. I was eating lots of McDonald's. And honestly, every marathon I trained for, McDonald's, Taco Bell. I do try to eat somewhat healthy, but I'm not one of those guys that just goes all veggies, because if I did that, I'd be in a bad mood because I'd be super starving. You need the protein, you need the fat as a marathon runner, because it's your fuel. You need your carbs. So, but cereal, ramen noodles are great because you got your carbs and you got salt. Some runners will drink, and I've started to do this. I'll drink pickle juice after a long run. My kids are out. We'll finish all the pickles, and I'll just tell my wife leave the pickle juice because I'll drink it after a long run. It's really salty. Pedialyte, which is for like rehydrating.
Love some Pedialyte.
Yeah, babies and kids. I love Pedialyte. It's pop. I'm a huge for all the runners out there. I drink lots of Bone Robbers. You guys will get that joke. Large McDonald's Cokes. Those are my go-to after a long run. So I think a couple ways to avoid injury are one is to know the right drills, know the right exercises to do. And again, a lot of it's working on flexibility and movement through the hips and core, making sure everything's functioning properly. I don't do a lot of static stretching, like standing and just holding a stretch for a long time. I rarely do that, honestly. It's a lot of just movements and drills and things of that nature. So I think knowing what to do there is important. And I had to see a doctor to learn all that. He helped me through a major issue. Two, I think just making running a regular thing. If you're a person that's thinking about doing a marathon, I would suggest running for at least a year and just focus on training for a 5K, and then focus on trying to make your 5K even better, even faster, and then run another 5K and try to get faster, and then run a 10K, and then race a half marathon, and then eventually maybe start thinking about a marathon. But I think you runners put themselves at risk for injury when they haven't been running a whole lot and they decide, hey, I'm going to go right into a marathon. It can be done. My nephew-in-law actually did it. He did no training. He just jumped right into the marathon. He finished, but if you ask him, he probably said he would never do that again without training. It can be done, but it's tough. And if you want to run a good marathon, you obviously need to be well trained for it. Honestly, it seems counterintuitive, I guess, if that's the word, or paradoxical, but the more you run, the less you're probably going to get injured because you prepare your body for the distance of the marathon. Okay. And let me go back to the previous question too. Recovery. Recovery is really important. Getting lots of sleep, tons of sleep, eating enough, but also taking your easy days really, really easy. I'm a huge advocate of that. Since you are going hard Wednesday, Saturday, you have to take the rest of the days really easy. Question was most mentally taxing. Right when you get to miles 16, 17, 18, 19. Because when you think about it, you still have 10 miles, 9 miles, 8 miles, 7 miles left to go. And that's a long way, especially if you've been running for a couple hours already. And once you hit mile 20, every step hurts. It does. Like your whole body just aches. But it's cool because it's a good kind of ache, and it's exciting. It's an exciting feeling, but it's also extremely painful. So mentally, those miles are toughest. Physically, I would say right when you get to around mile 20, when you know you have only a 10K left. Physically, it's very, very difficult. But then when you get to that last mile, that's when your adrenaline really starts to flow and you're excited because you're approaching the finish. It's incredible. It's so moving, especially after the events of 2013 with the bombing. I mean, it gives me chills. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. There's 30,000 people that run that race. You have to qualify to run that race, and there's just so many people there that come and watch. The marathon's unique because they shuttle the runners out 26.2 miles away from Boston, and you just run straight into Boston. And there's just so many people there that come and watch. The marathon's unique because they shuttle the runners out 26.2 miles away from Boston, and you just run straight into Boston. And you only make, I think, 2 turns the whole entire way, and the last 2 turns are, I think, within the last quarter mile or half mile of the race. So, but the incredible thing, there are people, there's a crowd the whole entire way, the whole entire 26.2 mile race. I've never run a marathon like it. The whole time, it's just, you're just so amped. I mean, just because people are cheering for you. People are out there with orange slices, water, popsicles, some people with beer, potato chips, pretzels, bacon. I mean, anything. They're just out there, providing the runners with whatever they need. It's a holiday in Boston. School shut down. People take off work. People don't work. They're tailgating and partying in their front yards. It's incredible. And then when you make those last 2 turns on the Boylston Street for the finish, it's incredible. It's one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Sadly, I ran 2017 and 2019 in Boston. Sadly, they were my 2 slowest marathons, but they were really hot days, and the Boston course is the toughest course I've ever run too. So I'm happy because I didn't make I have not made the typical rookie mistake, and it's this. And I've seen runners that have done this. They go out way too hard in the marathon. They're well trained for it. They're ready to go. They feel good on race day, and they just run the first few miles too hard because they feel good. But you should feel good 3 miles in, 5 miles in, 10 miles in. I always tell people the first marathon, you should feel great coming through the half marathon, 13.1, because you still have to do that all over again. You really should feel good probably through mile 20, and then really try to race the last 6 miles as hard as you can. So I never made that rookie mistake because I have a great coach, Randy Cox, who helps me, and he's a great source of running wisdom. And he warned me. He said, "Do not go out too hard." So I didn't. So every marathon I've done out conservatively. My first marathon, my best one, I was able to negative split it, meaning I ran my second half much faster than my first half. But in terms of other mistakes that I have made and other runners have made too, but I'm guilty of this, is I've raced, I'd say 2, possibly 3 marathons when I probably shouldn't have, because I had a snagging injury that I alluded to before, and I just thought, oh, it'll be fine on race day, and I just kind of let it go. But believe me, if you are having an issue, as hard as it is, you probably shouldn't race. If it's a nagging thing that's really bothering you, it's not going to get better on race day because you're racing 26.2 miles, and whatever condition you're dealing with, the race is just going to exacerbate the issue,
right?
And make it worse. It's probably not going to clear up if it's been nagging you for a while. And I've made that mistake, and I think I let my pride get in the way. Like, oh, I'll be fine. But since then, I've taken care of it, and now I make sure I go into a marathon ready, because it all, everything comes down to one day, one race that you put in months and months of training for. So you want to make sure you're prepared every day.